Talent Vlogcast. We are live with my good friend Blake Thiess, who hails from where?
Vancouver, Washington, Mike, a suburb of Portland, Oregon. It's cloudy and overcast, but hey, it's not raining, so we'll take it.
Yeah, I remember when was it? It was the Seattle 2019 SourceCon, right? That
Yeah.
we got to hang out, and that was really fun. And I think were you a speaker at that one?
I don't know if it was that one or the one in 2020. You know what? I spoke at the one in 2020. I was on the
Okay.
the welcome wagon
Oh
in
yes.
20.
Yep. Yeah, it hasn't. I mean, I just did a webinar on this on ERE, and just the last few years have been insane
Yeah.
from 2020 till now. Do you want to give a bio about your background and where you come from?
Yeah, sure. So I'm a local kid, born and raised in Salem, Oregon. I've lived in Portland or the Portland metro area most of my life. But as it pertains to the talent acquisition space, I'm actually a weird kid. I got my degree in business with a focus in human resources, and I've been in HR basically since day one. The first half of my career was actually in the HR function as an HR business partner.
Nice.
Yeah, right. Supporting multiple, I had multiple different HR BP roles, and then I just got, Mike. I got tired of the muck of the workplace, right? That the back end of the employee life cycle, as it were, like the
Yep.
firing and the investigations. And I had done some recruiting as a function of my role, and I genuinely enjoyed it. It was a lot more in alignment with who I am, and fully pivoted into recruiting. Gosh, back in 2014, my first foray was as a regional recruiter for Thrivent Financial, which is a Fortune 500 financial services company. So I was recruiting financial advisors to open up and start their own financial advising practice,
Nice.
basically in and around the Seattle area. Um, Moved back home to the Portland area. I was a leadership recruiter for Prestige Care.
Okay.
They owned and operated. That's where, when you and I met, I was
Yep.
working for them.
You
They
got
at the
promoted, didn't
time,
you? Too. You got to director, didn't you?
yeah, I was a leadership recruiter, and then they promoted me to the director of TA role that didn't exist before. We were talking earlier offline, Mike, about like creating your own job and how
Yep.
rare that is and how humbling that is, right? And so
Yep.
I share that with
That's
you.
been this year for me too.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah. I
yeah. So
mean,
I was able to do that. Go ahead.
yeah. No, and I think it's a good testament to. I think the fact that I would say is that there's many roads into TA. So my story is
Yeah.
very similar. I actually started in HR also. So I got
Oh,
my
I didn't
SHRM
know that.
CP, and I was an intern, and then I became an HR generalist, and then I kind of my road then turned into agency side, and then from there just kept going into recruiting. So and then I was at ADP for 9 years, and then it's just been a journey since then. So yes, no, I get the so many paths into this recruiting profession, but I'm with you, because that's the one thing I think many of us come into this side of it because we like the happy side of HR
Yeah.
versus the negative side, right? Um, but yeah, tell me about what there have been a lot of challenges these last few years since 2020 onwards. What's your take on that? I
Yeah.
think you're in a bit of a transition yourself, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'll kind of hit on that last part, and then I'll talk about kind of 2020 and beyond, specifically in the healthcare space. It's it's been a roller coaster, but my most recent role, I was head of TA for Trinity Hospice, so I oversaw all things talent acquisition, employer brand. I was there for 3 years. They recently went through unfortunately, like many people, a restructuring.
Right.
Because of that, my role was eliminated. So I've been on the job hunt for the last about 3 months at this point. Applied for over 450 jobs, had a handful of interviews. It's been quite the roller coaster, but yeah, I'm excited for what's next for sure. But back to the first part of your question, 2020. Like many, I was 100% in office. Uh, at the time, I was working for Prestige Care. Their corporate office was here in Vancouver, where I'm at. and pivoting to working fully remote and overseeing a fully remote team. At the time, I had 9 direct reports. That was a complete change, right? Just a complete change in how we work, how we lead, how we manage, how we engage people, quite frankly, how we recruit too. So since 2020, it's been a grind. It's been a season of transition, both professionally and personally. But I think that it's been a season of growth too. I mean, learning to operate in a fully remote environment. I don't know how you feel, but I couldn't go back into an office 5 days a week. I think the
Yep.
bread is buttered at like 2 to 3 days a week, but I
Yep.
don't want to go
The
to an
hybrid
office. I mean, what
scenario
do
is
you
here
do?
to remain. Most companies are now doing the hybrid scenario. I think I saw, gosh, it's got to be 60 to 70% are still offering some kind of hybrid remote thing. So
Okay.
I think a lot have settled into a rhythm. There's a lot of return to office initiatives and whatnot. But
Yeah.
what companies are finding as they're doing that is, employees have gotten used to this piece. And so some organizations are pivoting to a hybrid because it gives you the best of the remote plus the on-site part that they miss. But the other piece of this, and you probably can speak to this too, is
Yeah.
there's a mental health issue that has arisen if you're to some degree. I don't know how to explain it. I think a lot of companies are running into this. There's morale challenges. So the hybrid scenario is why they're going back to that in many cases, because it gives you the best of both worlds. It keeps morale up. And, I don't know. Have you seen that too? It's an interesting phenomenon. I think we're kind of coming full circle in many ways.
Yeah. I when you say mental health, I'm curious what your thoughts are. You referencing like people feel disengaged? Is that
That's
kind
it.
of what you're
That's what
talking
I'm
about?
talking about. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Disengagement. That's a better word
yeah.
for it. I was
I
trying to
I
think of
would
the right wording. So,
yeah. I mean, I would agree. I mean, as a type A ESFJ, Enneagram 3 individual, I get energy from people, from my teammates, from my colleagues. Sue in accounts
you're referencing
receivable,
Myers
like we're
Briggs, aren't you?
yeah, right. I miss that. Like I've been fully remote for 6 years at this point. I shade over 6 years, and I miss going to the place and having colleagues. So yeah, there is a struggle mentally there. And I mean I can only speak for myself, and maybe this will resonate with you, Mike. I mean I feel pretty lonely. Largely, I've had very absent supervisors post prestige care, which is fine. I mean, I can operate and I have operated at a high level, but I do think there is an issue with loneliness in the workplace in a fully
Mm.
remote environment, and I think that's where leaders, us as TA leaders, if we have the privilege to lead, and I use that term intentionally, that privilege, it is a privilege to lead. We must, in a remote environment, relentlessly pursue the folks that we have the privilege to lead, constantly engage them, not with, hey, how are you hitting your numbers, or, how many interviews did you do today? I mean, that's kind of a function, and
Yep.
but I'd say that, there needs to be an intentionality with recruiting leaders, Mike, to
I like
proactively
that.
engage those folks in order to help them understand that they're part of something bigger than themselves. And here's
Yeah.
the impact that they're making through their work. I think that's a hallmark of
Oh,
a
man.
true
Wow.
recruiting leader.
Okay. So you just hit on something that I've been kind of honing in on: engagement, impact. Um, it's very interesting you went there, and I love that because I think the leadership aspect of you've learned some things in leadership. I'm actually going to get to part of our segment here. I'll talk about with you, what did it take to become a leader and all that. We'll get to that in a minute, but there is one question I wanted to ask you. So before I go down that, because I think there's a lot of advice you have for recruiters who are aspiring to leadership and what you do to get there,
Yeah.
because that's an interesting pivot. And in a sense, I want to say this: I think all recruiters are leaders, whether they know it or not.
Ooh, I like
They
that.
don't give themselves credit for that because their impact is creating the talent aspect on the downstream, where they bring in a great person that then, and this is something I've seen, and it's an amazing thing. This motivates me more than anything. Have you gotten those calls from people you placed that say, I'm doing really well? They check in with you later, like a candidate you placed like years ago. They come back and they say, Had you not opened that door for me, I wouldn't have been able to grow. And thank you for
Yeah.
doing that. Those conversations. I got one the other day from a person I'd placed like 4 or 5 years ago, and they're thriving. And
Yeah.
it was so incredible to hear that. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is it. And this is why we do what we do. It's the impact of the
Yes.
human piece of it. It's not just
Mm,
filling a seat, it's the long term impact to your organization, the downstream of that. This is
yeah.
the paradigm shift we need right now. I think a lot of recruiters are going through this temporary mindset of survival mode. Goes back to Maslow's hierarchy.
Mm,
You need to keep the self-actualization at the forefront always, even if you're in a job search, even if you're in transition, because that self-actualization on the top, you can't just be surviving down here. When you get past that, it changes your entire. I've seen this in myself. When I'm
yeah.
past that place and self-actualization is actually happening, I'm operating from peak performance. There's a guy by the name of Ed Milet. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Let me recommend to everyone out there this gentleman's podcast. You've heard him too, apparently. Um,
I have one of his books over here. In fact, I think you and I read the same book
is that The
recently.
Power of One More? Can you
Or
pull that
one
up?
more.
Grab it.
Yeah,
Grab it. Show that book because
yeah. Hold on.
yeah, get it, man. That's so while he's getting that, let me say what
Here we
this
go.
book is. It's The Power of One More by Ed Milet. Oh my gosh. This
Woo.
book changed my perception of the way that I have impact in the way I work. And he talks about his dad. So okay, how I
Yep.
saw Ed Milet, I attended Live to Lead by John C. Maxwell. It's an event, it's a little conference that he does every year. And he put on one of the most transformative presentations, The Power of One More, when he was just getting his book out there. And that's when I bought his book. And so I think it's awesome that you have that because it goes to show that I mean, his podcast is incredible, but he was just
It's
talking about
terrific.
this the other day about the impact that you have and realizing that you have a higher calling in your role that is going to shape lives. And I was
Yes.
sitting back going, oh, this is recruiting. This is the message that's missing right now. And since 2026, if you can go to ERE's YouTube channel and you can watch the presentation I just did. And I was talking about the series of events from 2020 until now that have been disruptive. We basically had a whole series of macro level events in 6 years that made for a really tough time in recruiting for everybody that's in this field. And so this is why I like talking to you today, Blake, because I think you've had lessons you've learned as well since being at Prestige Care and going through I mean, we had some offline conversations between you and I about what you'd been through in your life.
Yeah.
And just remember, and you hit home on this so well, but your whole life, the work is probably a good portion of your day. It's 40 hours a week. You invest a lot of time and energy into it. Why not bring your best self? You're on stage. You're
Yeah.
engaging with people. You're representing your company. You have to be positive. And that is operating from a position of strength, which comes from this one more mindset that Ed Milet talks about. Can you talk about advice that you have for aspiring recruiters who want to become leaders someday and what your
Yeah.
journey and lessons have been? I would love to hear that.
Yeah. That's a great question, Mike. And I think it's very analogous to this. You know,
Yep,
and
yep,
it's also analogous to always being prepared. So I was at Prestige Care. This is back in 16, 17, 18. I was an individual contributor as a leadership recruiter, recruiting clinical sales and operations leaders for assisted living communities. And my vision was to be a head of TA for an organization. That's the goal. That was the objective. And what I did, not only did I crush every metric that was put in front of me while at Prestige Care as that leadership recruiter, but I took it and I did one more. Back to this. What was I doing tactically that was one more? I was helping to create brand online for Prestige Care, which didn't really have one. So I helped create content and launch our LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram feeds, not only from a a clinical brand standpoint, but an employer brand standpoint. And I did that because I wanted to. No one was forcing me to do this. It was something that I wanted to do because I was interested in it, and I found opportunity um, there at Prestige Care that didn't exist before. So I would say always look for what your organization or your team or your function is not doing that you're passionate about, and then fill that vacuum with your passion, with your energy, and most importantly, your resources. So those are kind of some
Amen to
one
that.
more things I did.
Yes.
Secondly, I got involved in community. That's why you and I are talking right now, Mike. I mean, I look
Exactly.
back on that time, and I was going to conferences, I was creating content, writing articles for then
Mhm.
SourceCon
Yep.
with my thoughts. And a byproduct of that was growing the Prestige Care brand. I was
Mhm.
doing one more. And those are just kind of two tactical things. I'll fast forward, but at one point, the owners of this $500 million company and my boss, the chief legal officer, said, "You are doing far more than what is expected of you. You are growing our brand. You're saving us money through talent attraction. What do you want to do?" And I said, "Whether it's here or elsewhere, I will be head of recruiting." And they said, "Do you want to do it here?" I said, "Well, that job doesn't exist here." They said, "Well, write your own job description." I'm like, "Okay, I can do that." So I think it also speaks to the mantra of always be ready. When you're ready, you don't have to get ready. So constantly be on edge, not like crazy on edge. What I'm talking about is constantly be looking for that one more thing that you can do to differentiate yourself in a loud world. And by God's
Yes.
grace, I was able to do that. And thankfully, at that time, I worked for a company that saw that in me and gave me an opportunity that didn't exist that I would have never gotten externally. And for that, I'm internally grateful. So that's how I leverage one
Ooh,
more and energy and passion.
so
And
powerful, man.
yeah,
Love it.
yeah, it's good stuff.
You just gave some, okay. That advice you just gave is applicable to not only recruiters, but to everyone in their career, regardless of where they are right now. And let me build on that.
Yeah.
You've given me some thoughts that have come full circle for me recently. A few years ago, I had a decision to make, really tough one. I had been at ADP and grown. I had been promoted 3 times. I'd been there 9 years.
Wow.
And it later came to me, I later heard about this on the back end. I was up for promotion. Okay. So I got a call, and then I went to a mission driven organization that shared my values. And I went there, and there wasn't a ton of structure, there was a lot of moving parts. But it reminds me of advice I received as an HR intern many years ago. I was at Applied Materials, and I'll give a shout out to Judy Wallace, who is now retired. But she was the HR director at the time, and she sat and looked me straight in the eye as a aspiring SJSU grad in Silicon Valley, California, at Applied Materials. And she had hired me as an HR intern, and she says and looks at me, the greatest advice I'll ever give you at this stage of your career is when you're at a point where you're comfortable and where you've grown a ton in an organization, look for the opportunity that's going to help you continue to stretch your career and your skill set, even if it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable and uncertain. Whoa. Okay. So 2021, fast forward after all those years. I'd been at ADP for 9 years. I had a chance to go work for the largest employer in Utah. I took on a risk. Okay. It was a religious organization. There was a lot of moving parts, just a lot of things. And so I was like, okay,
Yeah.
what do I gain by by making this decision now?
I
International
totally
recruiting
remember that,
experience,
but I totally remember that,
international,
by the way, for you.
yes, international recruiting experience, growth in working
Mhm.
for a mission driven organization. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of, and going through a, an implementation of an ATS. I mean, there was just so many parts. and again, they didn't have this role completely defined as it was for a traditional recruiter. So it was a lot of learning. It was still talent acquisition, but it was a different role. So going into that, it was very uncomfortable, and there was a lot of growth that happened. I was there for about 18 months. I got what I needed, and then I was like, okay. And then I got a pivot to go to a construction staffing agency where I would also be doing selling staffing services and pulling in the talent advisor model more inherently. That was another switch, and
Quite the
it was something
pivot.
I'd never done. So I jumped into it, and I was doing staffing sales, something I'd never done before, just different pieces of the staffing angle that I hadn't seen, a different perspective, if you
Yeah.
will. So, but going through that and then going to AARP, every single one, and even now the present organization where I'm in a role that was essentially created, I'm more prepared to be an entrepreneur, to think out of the box and do this one
Mm.
more stuff that you're talking about, purposefully doing that in order to grow my career and my skill set. Now, if I hadn't made that choice at ADP, would I still be comfortable today? Yes, I would have been. Would I have grown in the same way? No. I wouldn't have more industry exposure to healthcare, to construction,
Yeah.
to other fields. So exactly what you're talking about is exactly my own journey in a different way, but it made me a better person, more
Mm.
aligned to potential leadership and other things that I needed to build my understanding. Was it uncomfortable? Was it
Yeah.
strange at times? Did it feel like I was swimming or treading water? Yes, it did. But that was growth. And
Yeah.
okay, going back to Ed Milet, he said, if you're not experiencing some level of discomfort in that, if you one the easy road is never the one where you're feeling discomfort.
Yep.
The hard road is the one where you're growing. Okay. Now, going back to what you just said, that's exactly what I would advise to every person in a career. If you've reached a point where you're comfortable, this goes for Gen Z, this goes for anyone. Find a need and a niche where you can fill that skill set. Am I more better positioned in my career for whatever comes my way now than I was 6 years ago? 100%. Such
Yeah.
a and that's the thing I have to remember. It's like if I had not made that choice, I would not be who I am today. And that's what Where's Your Next is all about. That's why I call this the Where's Your Next talent vlogcast. It's exactly that reason.
Well,
Keep
what I've heard
keep
from you,
prepping.
Mike, is
Yeah,
you intentionally got comfortable in the uncomfortable. And
that's
that's
right.
where the growth is. And something that I've struggled with my whole life is life white and black? It's a million shades of gray. But one of my favorite quotes is you're either growing or you're dying. And I know that's very binary, but I
Yes.
truly believe that those that are winning, that are getting promoted, in title, in pay, and who are really crushing it, sprint towards the things they haven't done, that they're getting uncomfortable. They're doing one more thing in order to stand out in a very noisy world. And you've done a phenomenal job of getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. And
Yep.
I just echo what you had to say. I mean, you any profession, it's not just what we do here in TA and sourcing and employer brand and things like that, but anything. Sprint towards the things that are going to make you really stinking uncomfortable, or by the way, if no one's going to give you that opportunity internally, just go do it yourself. What is a company going to do? Say, hey, you're bringing too much value and you're filling the need where we don't, or you're filling a void where we don't have it. Stop. Go sprint towards that.
Yep. And that's the other thing I would tell you is the power of one more is also tied to your performance. And intentionally performing at a
Yeah.
higher level. I call it peak performance. And and there's also this concept called Kaizen. So I don't know
Yep.
if you've heard of the Kaizen concept, which is the old quality
Japanese.
metric that
Yeah.
Japanese came up with. It's a continuous improvement metric. Even if it's by 1% each day, I challenge myself. Okay, what did I
Yeah.
do? I mean, I have a thing that I do, and this has been traditional ever since COVID came on the scene, and maybe a little bit before I was doing this to some degree as well. But when I was in that place of discomfort and learning and growth, I took something I called quiet time at the beginning of each month, and I went and I sat down and I said, okay, what's going right, what am I doing well, what do I need to fix, what do I need to kind of grow on. And I always made sure I was intentional with my managers at the time in each one of these spaces. And I said, look, this is what I'm trying to do, this is where I'm going, this is what I'm trying to do to make our business better. And I've always performed. I've had a, this, each of these roles, I found a way to perform even when it was uncomfortable. And that's the key, is keep performing, keep moving in that direction, and keep
Yeah,
growing yourself. Like be your own best critic. Now don't take that the wrong way, but it just means in a healthy way, because folks like me and you, we are high performers, so we probably hold ourselves to a high standard. We're our own greatest critic. It's a double-edged
absolutely.
sword,
You
right?
should be. You should be relentlessly auditing your life.
That's right, 100%. And so that's what I'm saying, is it's this journey of the power of one more. At each interval, at each stage, it's come full circle. And my journey's been unique in for me. Yours has been unique for you, I think. But there's a theme between us, and that's what I love, is that you found growth in one way, I found it in another, and that's so important to your career. Careers are 40, 50 years long, okay? And there's going to be seasons where you're going to have doubt and you're going to see uncertainty. The key is to be consistently performing in the midst of that, and keep finding a way, and then keep being innovative is the word I would use.
Mm,
It's like you're your own entrepreneur, a sense, in your own career. You are the CEO of your own career. That's the what I'm
100%.
trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious, Mike, on this kind of theme of evolution and evolving, what's one thing tactically that you have been deploying in the last, oh shoot, 2, 3, 4 months that you've never done before that has leveled up your career or your practice? What's kind of
Ooh,
that
good
cutting edge
question.
for you of late?
Okay, so oh man, I would say being able to take complex concepts and then boil them down simply. Like, okay, so
Mm,
how do I explain what that means? It's being I've always been one who's been a good writer. I've always been one who can be verbose, okay? Now, is that a strength? Yes. Can it be a weakness in certain cases? Yes. So, self-awareness is the key. So, but again, being able to take complex talent market insight data and then break that down in a consultative way for a hiring manager on a level that they can relate to. That's been the journey of these past 4 months for me.
mm,
I would say that's been a huge part of the recent journey at my current company for sure. So
yeah,
that's been a big one. And now, have I always been able to do that to some degree? Yes. But again, going back to the journey I had, so I kind of had a foundation that was built into me from ADP, who taught us naturally how to be consultative. And
yeah.
then I took that to every environment that I was in. But each environment demanded that I change that
Mm,
script, if you will, that talk track, to better align to that culture. And that's been a big one. And so I think I've honed it enough now where I'm at I can be with an executive and talk at their level and say, look, these are the challenges that are real, the problems that are real for talent acquisition that you are facing.
yeah,
And here's why. And then being able to take that and break it down for them. That's powerful. It's a
yeah.
next level conversation of the talent advisor, which again, I what do you think about the concept of a talent architect? Have you heard that terminology being thrown around a lot?
Uh, Talent architect. I haven't heard that terminology. I mean, we've just been doing it. It just hasn't been glossed.
Yes.
Yeah,
So the talent architect is kind of it's taking all elements of the hats that we have to wear as a TA pro. Because
yeah,
again, you wear multiple hats, right? It's just the reality of who we are. You talked about content. You have to be one part content strategist. You have to be one part talent advisor, one part economist, one part able
and that's
to. I
why
mean,
it's awesome. That's why we love what we
That's
do,
what it
what we
is.
do.
Exactly. And I think it's just, if I had to say, again, going back to your question, bringing it home,
Yeah,
it's the ability to take the market data that we see as recruiters and then take that and package it in a way that an executive can understand or a talent leader can understand, so
yeah,
that you go, look, I understand your world. I understand what you're facing. I understand how you feel. But this is why you're feeling this way. This is the reality behind it. This is the market conditions that have brought us to where we are. And being able to tell that story and put it into a concise, bulleted framework
yeah.
that makes sense is very important. And as an HR leader, if you're trying to aspire to leadership, please make sure that you continue to hone your communication style. Very important.
So crucial.
And I've been having to do this constantly. Talk more about that. What's been your experience with, as you became a leader? What was some of the things you had to do to adapt, to change from an individual recruiter to the leadership side?
Yeah, I mean that's a huge question, and I would do something different in the year 2026 as opposed to when I did it in whatever that was, 2017, 18. I mean, what I did in order to be speaking the executive language, I think that's really the heart of the question.
That's right.
You know, I think number one, understanding the totality of what the recruiting and sourcing function was doing and being able to speak to that, to your point, and I agree, Mike, in a very concise bulleted, bullet point deployment. I'd say that number one. So number two, also communicating the struggles that the
Yes.
team has, what we've done,
Yep.
and why we're running into what I think, looking at data, why I think we're running into these. And then number three, being able to speak to what resources do we need to overcome and bust through those barriers, and what is the cost of
100%.
those and the anticipated ROI. I guess for me,
Yes.
I've always been a very confident guy. I mean, you talked about your first internship earlier on in our
Yep.
stream. My first internship, I'll never forget this, Mike. The very first day of my very first HR internship was at Zymo Genetics, RIP, um, downtown Seattle. I was living on Queen Anne Hill. I was actually just up in Seattle this past weekend, but I remember the very
I love
first
that
day.
city.
I'm like 19 or 20. Um, I sat in a boardroom next to the president of Zymo Genetics. I forget this guy's name, but anyway, I sat right next to him, and I've always been that kind of confident guy, especially in a boardroom. I'm not really scared of executives. I want to know my craft and what I'm doing, and fully preparing for that dialogue. But in that moment, I wasn't scared. Like, I introduced myself. Here's the value I'm going to be creating your business. I'm going to be working with Darren Hamby, rest in peace, my mentor. He was the VP of HR at the time. And I was just very confident. So I think confidence is huge, but preparation is the precursor to confidence, specifically when you're interacting with C-suite leaders, et cetera. So I'd say this to any recruiting practitioner who wants to level up to a leadership role, or even that leader. Know your stuff, know your stuff like the back of your hand. That will build your confidence, and that will allow you to stand out in all forms of communication with our C-suite friends.
Very good point. And the other piece of this I would add to you is, say, to any job seeker, any person in their career right now, our peers in recruiting, and just across the board, everybody who's in a career right now, and seeing the
Yeah,
uncertainty ahead of us with AI and these other things, embrace the uncertainty and realize that opportunity actually lies in uncertainty, which has been the most interesting piece of my journey, is realizing and seeing how opportunity arises when there are issues and problems. Now, the other thing that's interesting is these last few years, budgets in TA have become tighter.
yeah,
There have been a lot of moving parts across the board. You've had a whipsaw effect from the 2020s. Recruiters are feeling it. Everybody's feeling it. Managers are feeling it. It's not, just realize you're in a zone that's universal, that everybody's feeling this uncertainty that's coming from AI. Now, What is the opportunity of AI? It's the opportunity to become better at what you do. It's
Yeah.
anticipating signals more quickly. AI has the power to take data and package it in the way we never had
Yeah.
this before. When we started, we had to do this from scratch. But today you have much more opportunity to find those signals in the marketplace and see where the opportunities are and do a SWOT analysis, not only in your own career, but in a TA reality. Do a SWOT
Yeah.
analysis every month, by the way, to keep looking at the strategy of where you're going to drive to. Now you have to get somewhere by what you said, 10:55.
Yeah. Probably should boogie on out of here in 5 minutes.
Okay, so we'll wrap it up. But do you have any thoughts on parting thoughts? Anything that you want to share? I mean, that last thought I gave is probably the best piece of advice I can give: is embrace the uncertainty and find the opportunity within it. That's my best advice to anyone right now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm always looking for ways to bring value and, kind of these types of things or any sort of content creation. But I think the biggest kind of parting, I guess, thought or idea is be so good that people cannot ignore you. So the topic of AI is a whole other thing that conferences have leaned in on nonstop, and other content has leaned in on. But I think what I mean by be so good they can't ignore you is do one more thing to get even better. Be an absolute relentlessly pursue your expertise in your area, whether it's TA, sourcing, sales, whatever that is.
Yep.
Because as we continue to lean into the AI revolution, you need to understand how to leverage AI, architect the AI, and be the best stinking, we'll use us as an example, Mike, the expert in recruiting. Relentlessly pursue that expertise, because that will allow you to stand out and, quite frankly, survive what is to come. Great example. I actually had this was actually really scary yesterday, Mike. I had an AI enabled interview that was,
Oh, you did?
yeah, it was
Oh,
video
wow.
enabled yesterday. And I walked away. I was like, oh my God, this thing is better than me at like diving in
Ooh.
to comments that I made. I was like, holy cow. So somebody has to architect that. Somebody has to source better than that. Somebody has to wrangle that. So I would say to anybody, understand how to leverage AI, architect AI, and leverage it to make your life easier. So, but also be so good they can't ignore you. Be visible. Go one more thing. Find the need that your company has and relentlessly fill that need. Those are the people that are going to survive what's coming and what is here.
Let me add this. The TA support ecosystem has become, to some degree, convoluted because of budgets,
Yeah.
and create your own regional recruiting support or professional association grouping in your own community. If it's not there, create a meetup, create something,
Yeah.
get all these things moving so that you can help others and move others forward. This is exactly the thing that
Yeah.
makes a difference and differentiates you. What we are missing right now, and where there's hunger, is a lot of people need the community feel again
Oh,
that recruiting
100%.
once had and other professions had. If you're accounting, get an accounting group together, get people that share your values and your like-minded career values together. We need more of this. And Utah's doing this. Shout out to my friend Marcus Pays, who's doing this, and I'm supporting him as his colleague in this effort to get a recruiting support professional association
Mm,
out in Utah together. Do it regionally. You do it, Blake. If nobody has it out where you are, you lead the way. I mean, that's the best advice I can give right now. And
yeah.
keep
Yeah.
differentiating. In this world of AI, people are longing for the human again. And
100%.
I mean, the old school is still cool,
And I
but
think
that's
it
my,
will be. I think it will be, because we are, at the end of the day, Mike, we are in the people business. We are
that's
in the
correct.
people business. We're not in the robot
That's right.
business. At the end of the day,
Yep.
people
Yep.
choose. It's completely
And that's
different
how
when
you
I
get
pick
the
up the
best
phone.
talent. That's how you get the
That's how
best
you do it.
talent, is being human. Yep. And we've
Yep.
we've lost some of that, don't you think, in these
I
recent
couldn't agree
years?
more.
Yeah. Well, that's a good parting thought. Man, you've been
Yeah.
great. Everyone, please
Thanks, man.
hire Blake. Please hire this guy. He's on the hunt out in the Pacific Northwest. He's an absolutely fantastic TA leader. It's one of the reasons I wanted to get him on, because I knew he's just a fantastic human. And
Thanks, Mike.
man, we share the same. It's so cool that you're reading the same book that I did. That changed my life
Yeah,
too.
I know.
Everyone, check out Ed Milet's business podcast. I can highly recommend it to you. It changed my life, and each week it gives me a new angle. It
Yeah.
resets me, and he's just an amazing human being. This is a great story. But anyway, thanks for coming on, Blake.
Yeah.
Everybody on
Thanks for
Where's Your
having me, Mike.
Next? We'll see you next time.